Hmm. We are in the week of Parshat Noach, Noah's Ark. And I've been finding the narrative of Noah's Ark so meaningful and resonant in the last 2 years. Really, the experience of building an ark, building sanctuary and refuge in the midst of a flood of chaos and destruction. And this week, I find myself particularly resonating with a moment of transition in the narrative, the moment when the floodwaters cease and the waters begin to recede. And I'm feeling that palpable sense of being in Noah's Ark with the announcement of the ceasefire about 10 days ago, as fragile as it is, and with all of the mixed emotions that I've been feeling, witnessing the return home, finally, of 20 living hostages, with weeping and relief and joy and brokenness, and the return of the bodies of some of the hostages who have been killed, and with heartbreak for the families who are still waiting, and unresolved questions about sufficient aid in reaching Gazans, and witnessing Palestinian families returning to the rubble that was their home, and holding my breath and still breathing as the unclear, unstable future of these two nations unfolds. And so, my friends, I'm imagining us in Noah's Ark, coming to rest after 40 days of rain and flooding, and another 150 days of the waters surging. And at this moment, the ark comes to rest on the peaks of the mountains of Ararat. And the floodgates of heaven and of the cosmic deep stop up, and the waters start to recede. I've been feeling so many emotions, and I want to hold the question, what can Parshat Noach teach us about this moment of pause, of transition? The flood is not totally over yet, but something has changed. The deluge and downpour has paused, and something new is beginning to emerge. I'm struck that it still takes 228 days before Noah and his families and all of the animals can leave the ark on dry land. And that's just the physical transition. But this is nonetheless a moment of change. It says that the ark rested, vatanach hateva. The ark rested, and the first thing that Noah does is he opens a window. This is where I want our practice to begin. So I'm going to keep teaching, but I invite you to come into a posture of practice for a moment of rest and of opening. So if you'd like to close your eyes, do so, or your focus need not be on the screen. And it's striking that after all these months of Noah and the ark having no solid ground, there is this resting on the peaks. So I wonder if you can feel yourself resting and supported right where you are. What stability can you feel from your feet on the ground? From the stability of the chair beneath you? Can you allow a moment of deep rest to come into your body? Perhaps even releasing some layers of tension, fear, worry. So much has become normalized in our bodies, anxious and worried for all this time. Maybe you can invite a few deep breaths and sigh to release. Noah's very name means rest, Noach. Can we embody the invitation of his very being? And allowing the arc of our bodies to be supported. To trust and let go into that support. Let's notice that once the ark comes to rest, Noah opens the window. Amidst the flood and the downpour, he has been contained and restricted inside the ark. But now, even though there is no solid ground and he can't yet leave the ark, and the drama is not yet over, he doesn't need to shut himself in anymore. He can open and widen his view, open to expansive awareness. So as you stay connected to your body in grounding and in rest, can you allow your mind to be wide as the sky? Any thoughts or feelings that arise can be witnessed in this expansive space and wide quality of sky mind. And what is the next thing that Noah does? He sends out birds. So imagine this. In order to track the progress of the receding waters and the gradual appearance of solid ground, first Noah sends out a raven, and then in multiple attempts, 3 times, he sends out a dove. So what is the yonah, the dove? The Hasidic master commentator, the Be'er Maim Chaim, notes that in the Song of Songs, the dove is the tender, cherished beloved. Yonati tamati, my dove, my love. And it's based on this narrative that the dove becomes associated with the quality of peace. But he doesn't send out the dove first. After horror and loss and anger and fear, this tender bird cannot be released first. It won't have anywhere to land. I think he is teaching us that first we have to send out the raven, the orev. And the raven, yatso vashov. It runs out and it comes back. For Hasidic commentators, this is understood as a spiritual dynamic of expansion and contraction, expansion and contraction. That first, the what is given wing is not simple. It's actually quite complicated. It expands and contracts, it runs to and fro. And it's an expression of what we need space for. The back and forth motion is slowly reintroducing bodies, hearts, and minds to a dynamic of not just being gripped, closed, and held, but expanding a little and then contracting, falling open and then closed. It's not all at once. This is the very movement of our breath. Notice the raven quality of breathing in and expanding, releasing and contracting. And the last element I want to highlight as we weave it into our practice is that Be'er Mayim Chaim adds that the Orev, the raven, it's the same letters, same root as La'arov, a mixture. This is such a time of mixed, fraught emotions and mixed realities. Be'er Mayim Chaim says that the raven embodies a complicated mixture of opposites, of bad within the good and good within the bad. We make room in this time, Noah teaches us, for the ecstatic joy of seeing the faces of hostages returned and connecting with their families and with heartbreak. That we practice at the very same time relief and fear. At the very same time, celebration and sadness. As we sit for the next 10 minutes or so, a little less, I invite you to turn toward the various emotions or textures that may be present, one not canceling out the other. But the wings of the orev, this bird that is large and squawking and rough, can have the wide space of the sky of awareness to be felt and known, feeling by feeling, emotion by emotion, until it feels safe enough to release the tender dove. Let's practice in silence together. So often, it's only when the worst is over that we can make our hearts and minds available to notice the extent of the wreckage and the seeds of hope and possibility. Keep noticing what is here. What is here today, to which you can turn your loving attention. Wide sky and open window. I'll close with words from Leonard Cohen's poem, Prayer for the Messiah. This is just an excerpt. The full poem is in the chat. Oh, send out the raven ahead of the dove. Oh, sing from your chains where you're chained in a cave. Your eyes through my eyes shine brighter than love. Your blood in my ballad collapses the grave. May it be our blessing to practice turning toward all the mixed and complex truths within us and outside of us, to tend to them, to give them wide space so that our hearts can remain agile and our minds clear. Can you hear it, son? I invite you gently to turn your attention back to us all together here. Thank you, dear ones. So, my friends, we have the opportunity to turn to Kaddish Tom, to Mourner's Kaddish. If you're thinking of a loved one today, you're invited to put their name in the chat. If you're in a period of mourning personally, or if you're thinking of dear ones, loved ones around the world. And if you're saying Kaddish, you're invited to unmute, to rise in body or in spirit. And we can join together in the words of Kaddish.
Thou, Yitgadal, Yama Divrach, Mechon v'mechon Chaye Israel, Alav Yizman Karev, Shmei Rabba Merav, Kaman V'Natar, Alav, Yidkul Shabrichu, Ila, Kol Berchata V'Truta, Shibru, Amen.
Yehesh
Shema Rabbi Mitchum Amen. Shema
Edikushama
Rabbi Akhrisrael. Oseh Shalom Brahma. Oseh Shalom. Lenu V'Chol Israel. Shvete.
Yehesh Lama Rabba Mishnaya Lenu V'Chol Yisrael Oseh Shalom Dinamai Kuyase Shalom Lenu V'Chol Yisrael Amen.
May their memories be a blessing, and may all those who are mourning feel held in support, in memory, in love. If you are leaving us now, thank you so much for being here. If you're able to stay, we have another 15 minutes together for questions and reflections. It's helpful if you write in bold question, if you have a question to put in the chat. Let's see, I'm curious what resonated for people. I found myself so intrigued by these two birds, the raven and the dove, and what they symbolize, what they invite us to experience. And Noah's whole process. It's stunning to me that it takes longer for the waters to recede and for him to step out on dry land than the whole length of the flood itself. Utter destruction happens very quickly, but the readiness to begin to rebuild takes a long time. So I just want to note that. I don't see any questions yet, so I'll need to keep talking until there's a question. Well, Ruth writes, love the image of the window opening as the first action. We need to be able to see and sense as a first step. Yes, I think that's so insightful. And what he sees first isn't the ground and doesn't see what the state of the water is, but rather the expansiveness of the sky. I think the window is an indication of being able to open the barrier between the enclosed ark and the outside world. And in this case, that means beginning to let in the unbelievable destruction and also the light of awareness, so we can be with and recognize what is. And Jessica wrote, beautiful, beautiful teaching. Thank you. Maybe we need to feel anger before love. Actually, there's a teaching from the Maori Naim who says that the raven is anger, is the embodiment of anger. And I didn't want to put in too many different teachings, meanings, but I really appreciate your comment, Jessica, that after the intensity of the fear and survival can quiet a little bit, there's actually room for anger and grief and loss and, but I think the anger has an important place. I think it's also striking that when, after any kind of tragedy, there isn't the space and the awareness of processing the grief and loss and anger and so on, the trauma is carried out into the world after such an event. So I'm holding such potent questions about what is the healing process, what is the transition process, and how do we remain diligent in our practice with the emotions and the feelings and the sensations. I see a couple questions from Glenn. it no doubt took enormous patience within Noah's family in the closed confines of the ark. How do we both stay with the family and maintain the wide arms of patience? Beautiful question. It's interesting that during the flood, there's no mention in the Torah of waiting. 40 days of pouring and flooding, and then 150 days. It's not clear if it's 150 days in total or 40 and then 150, but no mention of waiting. And yet in this short section in chapter 8 of Genesis, it mentions Noah waiting twice. After the raven has gone out and flies back and forth, and after the first dove is sent and comes back. It says Noah waited. And Noah sent out the dove again, and the dove came back with an olive branch. And Noah waited, and then sent out the dove again, and it didn't come back. And this waiting, I think, is also an essential part of the process, that it's a deep teaching of patience. Especially when there's like the slightest beginning of a change, the desire for it to move quickly, for change to really happen. Let's let everything evolve and shift and change. Impatience arises, and we get to really notice that. And what a beautiful question around how do we stay? Well, we keep noticing the impatience arising, and allowing breath and staying with the impatience to be a practice of patience. Sarah wrote, I was struck by the black and white of the raven and dove, and how often I get stuck in binaries, that I need to see the space beyond the black fire and white fire, to let the Shekhinah to show me the way out of the box, when the safety of my ark the safety of my ark, even when I fear the unknown. Beautifully put. That it's interesting that these birds or these qualities need not be seen as binaries, as opposites, but different qualities. The squawking, rough, loud raven needs its voice, needs to express all of the mixed emotions. And the tenderness of the dove needs to be there too. And maybe in real life, we need to keep sending the raven and the dove, and then another raven and another dove, and in the mix of it all. Thank you for that, Sarah. I see another question from Margaret. Isn't the continuation of the story an indication of the after effects of trauma? Namely, Noah getting dead drunk and there being sexual transgressions too. Absolutely. I didn't want to take it quite there in this short sitting, but absolutely we see that the trauma of survivor's guilt, of the intensity of awakening to the suffering and death and destruction of all life. Noah gets drunk and engages in sexual sin. I think the warning is deeply there, and the invitation of what he's able to do, almost because he doesn't have a choice, of waiting, of sending, of opening. But I think there's something there about when life goes back to normal, quote unquote, whatever that is. I think practice offers us a context to be able to keep coming home and exploring what is here inside. To not just resume, to not just rush back, but to continue to make a space for metabolizing trauma, metabolizing hurt and harm and intensity and difficulty, Um, let's see. I see a question from Pauline. Such destruction. Should Noah have done more to question God's decision to destroy all, but a small potential to restart? Is he too restful? You're beautifully echoing, Pauline, the question of a lot of our commentators who wonder, as he was building the ark, which took years, did he warn others? Did he argue with God? He's contrasted with Abraham, who argued with God about the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, which we'll hear in a couple weeks, or we'll hear very soon in the Torah. But I think that's a rich question that Noah is referred to as righteous in his time, Ish Tzadik Tamim B'dorotav. Was it that he was exceptionally just and good in the context of such corruption and violence? Or was he as good as he could be with a fairly low bar of goodness at that time? But yeah, was he too noach, too restful? Let's see. Roberta writes, is our present moment the return of the raven, the first return of the dove, the return of the olive branch? And when the dove dies, and when the dove maybe does not return, I think our present is all of these at once. I mean, I'm curious how it feels in your own experience, but I've been finding, well, one thing that I've been noticing, I've been deliberate about watching more and more videos of former hostages uniting with their families, and just let myself weep and celebrate and cry and celebrate and cry. Because I notice ways that I'm rushing ahead to worry about ongoing violence and worry about there are many pieces that my attention is drawn to. And those are deserving of attention, but I don't want to lose relationship with relief and celebration. And even celebration doesn't feel like quite the right word. It's sort of too broken to fully feel like joy. And we have all kinds of questions about what's coming next. Is this an olive branch moment? Doesn't feel like exactly. I think Parshat Noach gives us lots of good questions for what is this next moment and the next. Question. Is it from Noah that Abraham learned to question? I think that's gorgeous. Thank you, Val. You know, we have no idea who knew what. These are our stories. So I'd like to imagine perhaps that there was an oral tradition from Noah learning about learning and not learning through this tragedy, through not saving others, through everything that unfolded after that. Maybe Noah received and learned. I appreciate imagining that. Another question. Oh, Mira Neshama was supposed to teach today. There was just a question about, is everything okay? Yes, everything's okay. Thank you so much for your concern. She just needed to switch her teaching and wasn't available today. So we miss her. Her teaching is so deep and beautiful. And thank you, everyone, for your beautiful comments here. So we bring our practice and our sharing of time together to a close. I want to thank you each and all for being here. May we be blessed and strengthened in our practice. And may the waters continue to recede. May it be not so long before the olive branch is brought into our midst. And may we do everything that we can to make ourselves ready for each and every unfolding moment. Thank you so much, dear ones.